Good morning. Good to see everyone today. I wanted to share an encouragement from our memory verse this week. So our memory verse this week is from 1 Peter 1:16, "For you shall be holy, for I am holy." And when I first read that verse, I felt, man, this is a really daunting verse. God's standard is really high. And I wanted to share something which encouraged me to pursue after that standard. So that phrase, "You shall be holy, for I am holy," is actually a quotation from the book of Leviticus. And as far as I can tell, it occurs about 4 times in the book of Leviticus. So maybe we could turn together to Leviticus chapter 11, verse 44. Let's look at an example. Leviticus chapter 11 and verse 44. "For I am the Lord your God. Consecrate yourselves, therefore, and be holy, for I am holy." I want to first emphasize the first part of this verse, which says, "For I am the Lord your God," and especially that word, your. I think it's a really precious word, your, because God doesn't just go up to any random people and say that I am your God. So for God to be able to say to the Israelites, and now today to his sons and daughters, that I am your God, it's a tremendous privilege. So that's the first thing I want to emphasize. And every single time that I saw the phrase, "You shall be holy, for I am holy," in Leviticus, also alongside of it is that first phrase, "For I am the Lord your God." All 4 times I saw that. So there must be a connection, I felt, between that first part, "For I am the Lord your God," and "You shall be holy, for I am holy." And what is that connection? And if I look at verse 44, maybe I'll just paraphrase it for myself. The connection I saw was this. It would be something like, "Wenhai, for I am the Lord your God. I have called you to be my inheritance. I have called you to be my special treasure. I have called you to be the son of a king. Therefore, walk in a manner worthy of the calling and be holy, for I am holy." So this phrase, "Be holy, for I am holy," I see it now in the context of the tremendous calling that God has given us in terms of being his sons and his daughters. And that gives me the encouragement to pursue after that standard. Let me give an example. Let's say there's a king and there's all these beggars in a particular country. And he goes up to all the beggars and say, "If you come to my palace, I will let you be my sons and daughters." And some beggars go and respond, and they go to the king's palace. And the king looks at them and says, "Yes, you can be my sons and daughters, but you can't wear these dirty clothes anymore. You can't wear those old shoes. You can't wear these dirty pants. You can't wear that dirty shirt, because you're now the son and daughters of a king. You have to dress like one." So the question is, what does the son and daughters of a king, what should they wear? So please turn with me to Psalm 93. Psalm 93 and verse 5. This is a little phrase that encouraged me this week. Psalm 93, verse 5. It says in the middle part of verse 5, "Holiness befits your house." I like that word "befits" because it means suitable or appropriate. For example, this clothing befits an occasion. Let's say a suit and a tie befits a wedding, or basketball pants and sneakers do not befit a wedding. So in this particular case, it says that holiness befits the house of the Lord. And we know that the house of the Lord today is not simply just wood and stone, but it's our bodies. So the encouragement for me was that what is befitting for the sons and daughters of the king is holiness. So that was my encouragement this week. As I looked at this verse, I didn't want to look at it anymore as this tremendous standard that I simply could not attain, but to realize that in light of that tremendous calling that God has given us to be his sons and daughters, the only proper way to respond is to pursue a life of holiness and to put on that dress which is appropriate for the sons and daughters of a king. Thank you.
I want to look at the Lord, make him my example, and I speak out of a lack and a need, but also to know that as I trust in the Lord, I will suffer no lack. I will not lack in patient endurance. I will not lack in that quiet strength of godly character that I see in Jesus in the life that he lived on earth. So I pray that the Lord will help me in looking at that passage in Romans 5 and James 1. I pray that I would rejoice when trials or, when tests and temptations come my way, to know that the Lord wants to make me perfect and complete, lacking in nothing. And I want to think of that story that I once heard of to see tests and temptations as these stones that I find in the dark, and I carelessly start flinging them into the sea while I walk by the shore. But when I go home and turn on the lights, I see that they are diamonds, that those tests and temptations are diamonds that the Lord is using in my life. And to see that as a promise that the Lord wants to make me perfect and complete. So I pray that the Lord will allow me, and that I would allow the Lord to do a work in my life. And I want to learn from Him. I want to learn from the examples that I see in women in the Bible, and the living examples that I have in my life. So I pray that the Lord will strengthen me, that He would really give me that patient endurance that I want, and that quiet strength of godly character that I see in the women in the Bible, and in the living examples that I have around me. And I believe that the Lord will help me.
Yeah, when we were going through Nehemiah, the last message that was about chapter 13, where we see that Nehemiah comes, and when he goes off to back to the king for a while, and when he came back, many things were in a mess. Like people had taken away, people were not faithful to the Sabbath, they were not giving the tithes properly, and there were mixed marriages and foreigners brought into the assembly and so on. And he was so furious, and he had to go through a lot of correction work. And that spoke to me, because in the earlier part of this book, we see all these people working so zealously and sacrificially with him, and without caring for their own gain. But I'm sure they were working at a loss to themselves, but they were doing a work of the Lord. And then how come when the leader was away, they could not stand against this deterioration, compromise in their own selves? And that spoke to me that we can be in the church, and we can be in the fellowship, and we can be receiving so richly week after week, and even the midweek studies and so on. But are we really getting richer? That's something that, I thought I should ask myself. And I cannot ask that question here, because here we are so well fed and we feel so happy and good and holy. But it's the time to ask that question is in the time when we are not with the brothers and sisters, we are not with the church, and when we are left to our own selves to fight our battles and trials. And that is where the real thing comes. Are we really rich? Have we become richer by the meetings that we have been partaking of? And otherwise it will be like when the real storm comes, then I have no foothold. I find myself easily giving up. I cannot stand when someone comes and puts me into a test, and I can tell a lie. Is it possible? It is very much possible. That's what the scripture teaches. Everything is written for our instruction. And may God help us that we can flee from that deception that we can be in when we feel so happy and good in the fellowship of our brothers. There's a saying in when Solomon was building the temple, they say it's written that all the stones that were used to build the temple, they were cut in the quarry. And so when the stones were brought into the site to assemble, it was just an assembly, and there was no noise of the chisels that were heard. And that quarry, the work in the quarry, and that is what I need to do. That's what we all need to do personally. And then when the stones are brought together, there is a perfect assembly. And there is a beauty that God will be happy with. And there is a beauty that others will enjoy. And there is also a beauty that I myself can enjoy, because I see that my heart is in fellowship with the Lord. And I'm sure God will bring such situations when we are separated from our brothers and sisters. And we need to make our decisions before the Lord to glorify Him. And the one thing that I thought in that connection is that how do I judge myself in my heart during the time of temptation when these trials come to me? What are the thoughts that go into my heart? I'm not talking about when we fall and what do we do, but there are so many things that go on in our hearts even before the trials come. When we are prepared for the trial, God actually in His grace prepares us for the trial. And how do we judge our hearts, and how do we prepare ourselves? And if we do that work faithfully, God will keep us, and God will make us strong, and we will be able to bring to the side stones that are cut. and there may be still some edges to be smoothened, and God will help us.
Praise God. I was blessed from a verse in Ephesians chapter 5 a couple of weeks ago. Ephesians chapter 5, verse 8 to 10. Therefore you were formerly darkness, but now you are the light of the Lord. Walk as children of light. Verse 10. Trying to learn what is pleasing to the Lord. Verse 10 was what really encouraged and challenged me. In the context of you are no longer children of the world, you are not children of darkness, but now you have become children of light. You are, the light of the Lord is in you. What do you do next? Verse 10, trying to learn what is pleasing to the Lord. And there was two things that encouraged me from this. One is that I don't need to condemn myself when I see areas in my life where God is showing me that I'm not like the Lord, where the Lord is showing me that I'm still not pleasing Him in those aspects. As we're pressing on to the holiness of the Lord, it's like the Father leading us. And as He shows us areas in our life where I'm not holy, I don't need to condemn myself thinking, Lord, I've still not attained to that level, because according to this verse, even once I become a child of light, I'm still learning. I'm still trying to learn what is pleasing to the Lord. And the second thing that blessed me is that it is possible. It is possible for me to learn what is pleasing to the Lord. And as I was reading this verse, it helped me to practically translate this into my life. I happened to be listening to a song by Casting Crowns called Life Song. And one line in that song really, for me, was very close to what this verse was trying to tell. And then that line was, Lord, I want to sign your name to the end of this day, knowing that my heart was true. I want to sign your name to the end of this day. And so for me, I was thinking, when I come to the end of each day in my life, can I turn back and say, Lord, I want you to sign your name to the report card of this day, saying, Lord, did I do all that was pleasing to you on this day? As I go to bed, can I turn back and have the Lord sign and say, yes, you were pleasing to me in all you did today? And I believe if I keep coming back to the Father every day at the end of each day, He will faithfully, correct me in the things that I did wrong, but it will come from a place of love. It won't be a place of harsh correction, but a place of a father correcting a son, coming to him at the end of the day saying, Lord, I tried to do all that I could to please you. Were you pleased? And the Lord will see that and say, yes, I was pleased in this. But there might also be a correction of what I can do better. But I know that comes from a place of love. So I want to have that attitude of coming to the Lord at the end of each day to seek His face, to see if He was pleased in what I did. Praise God.